Zenzi, a diligent and kind-hearted young woman in Lusaka, Zambia, finishes her late shift at a small restaurant. The evening air is thick with the sounds of honking cars and hurried footsteps as people rush home. Clutching her worn-out handbag, she weaves through the crowded streets, eager to reach her tiny apartment and rest before another demanding day. As she waits at a traffic light, her eyes fall on an elderly man standing at the edge of the bustling road. His frail hands grip a wooden cane, his face etched with uncertainty. Cars whiz past without slowing down, and pedestrians move around him, barely sparing him a glance. Some see him, but no one stops. A voice in Zenzi's mind whispers, "Someone else will help him." Yet another voice, stronger, urges her forward. Without hesitation, she steps away from her path, approaches the old man, and gently places a hand on his arm. "Let me help you, sir," she says, offering a reassuring smile. Gratitude flickers in his tired eyes as he nods. Slowly, carefully, Zenzi guides him across the road, shielding him from impatient drivers who tap their brakes begrudgingly. When they reach the other side safely, he looks up at her with a shaky but heartfelt, "Thank you, my child." Zenzi smiles, feeling warmth spread in her chest. It was a small act, just a moment in her day, but as she turns to leave, she has no idea that this simple gesture will change her life forever. Zenzi smiled as the old man looked at her with kind eyes. His face had deep lines, and his clothes were old and torn. Even though he looked poor, there was something warm about him. "Thank you, my child," he said in a gentle voice. Zenzi felt happy that she had helped him. She knew what it was like to struggle. Life in Lusaka was not easy, and she worked hard every day at a small restaurant just to survive. "Are you hungry, Baba?" she asked. "Can I buy you some food?" The old man shook his head. "No, my dear. Kindness is its own reward." Zenzi did not understand why he refused, but she respected his choice. "Okay," she said. "Take care of yourself." Baba Tembo smiled again. "You too, my child. May good things come your way." With that, he turned and slowly walked away. Zenzi watched him for a moment, then continued her journey home. She did not think much about the encounter after that. It was just a small act of kindness, something she believed people should do for each other. But the next day, something strange happened. When she arrived at work in the morning, her manager, Mr. Firi, called her aside. "Zenzi, a man came here early this morning asking about you," he said. Zenzi frowned. "A man? Who?" "I don't know," Mr. Firi replied. "He didn't give his name, but he left this for you." He handed her a small folded piece of paper. Zenzi took it and opened it carefully. Inside was a short message written in neat handwriting. "Kindness never goes unnoticed. Keep your heart pure, and you will see miracle." There was no name, no signature, just those words. Zenzi's heart beat faster. Who could have left this? Was it Baba Tembo? But why? She looked around, as if expecting to see the old man somewhere nearby. But the restaurant was busy as usual, full of customers and workers rushing around. A strange feeling settled in her chest. Part curiosity, part excitement, part fear. Something told her that this was only the beginning. Zenzi's morning started just like any other. She woke up early, stretched her sore muscles, and prepared for another long shift at the restaurant. As she sipped her weak cup of tea, she thought about the strange note she had received the day before. Kindness never goes unnoticed. Keep your heart pure, and you will see miracle. The words lingered in her mind, but she had no time to dwell on them. Life was too busy for mysteries. Just as she was about to leave for work, she heard the deep hum of an expensive car engine outside. That was unusual. Her neighborhood was full of struggling workers like herself, and luxury cars never stopped here. Curious, she peeked through the window. A sleek black car, polished to perfection, was parked right in front of her tiny apartment. The doors opened smoothly, and two tall, well-dressed men stepped out. They wore sharp suits and carried themselves with quiet confidence. Her heart pounded. Who were they? Before she could react, one of them looked directly at her door and knocked firmly. "Miss Zenzi?" the man asked in a polite but serious tone. She hesitated. Should she answer? She had no reason to fear them, but something about this felt unreal. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door slightly. "Yes," she said cautiously. The man gave a small nod. "We have been asked to bring you with us. Please, come with us. There is someone who wishes to see you. Zenzi's hands tightened on the door. Who sent you? And why? The second man, who had been silent, finally spoke. You will know soon, Miss Zenzi. But I assure you, there is nothing to fear. We mean no harm. Her mind raced. Was this about the old man, Baba Tembo? Was he in trouble? Was this some kind of mistake? She should have said no. She should have refused. But something deep inside whispered that this was important. This moment was going to change her life. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed her bag and followed them. The car ride was silent. The inside of the vehicle smelled of rich leather, and the smooth hum of the engine made her uneasy. She had never been in a car like this before. As they drove through the city, Zenzi watched the familiar streets fade behind her. Soon, the small shops and crowded roads turned into quiet, wide streets lined with massive houses. Her breath caught in her throat. They were heading toward the outskirts of the city, where only the wealthiest people live. Finally, the car slowed and turned into a grand estate. The gates opened as if expecting her, and the car pulled up in front of a mansion so large it barely looked real. Zenzi swallowed hard. What had she gotten herself into? Zenzi stepped hesitantly into the grand mansion, her heart pounding. Everything about this place was overwhelming. The high ceilings, the golden chandeliers, the polished marble floors. It smelled of fresh roses and something else, something rich and expensive. The two men led her down a long hallway until they reached a pair of tall, carved wooden doors. One of them pushed the doors open, revealing a massive room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a beautiful garden. And there, sitting in an elegant chair, was Baba Tembo, but he was nothing like the frail old man she had helped cross the street. Zenzi's breath caught in her throat. Gone were the tattered clothes. Instead, he wore a flowing robe of deep blue embroidered with gold. His hair was neatly combed, and a shining ring rested on his finger. He no longer looked like a helpless man. He looked like a king. "Baba!" she whispered, barely believing her eyes. A warm smile spread across his face. "My dear child," he said, his voice rich and powerful. "Please, sit." Zenzi hesitated, then slowly stepped forward and lowered herself onto the plush chair across from him. Her mind raced. Who was he? Why had he pretended to be poor? As if reading her thoughts, Baba Tembo sighed. "I owe you an explanation," he said. "You see, I am not just an old man wandering the streets of Lusaka. My real name is Tembo Mwansa. I come from a long line of rulers. My family owns businesses, lands, and wealth across the country." Zenzi's head spun. "But why were you on the street that night? Why did you need help?" Baba Tembo chuckled softly. "Sometimes wealth blinds people. I wanted to see if kindness still exists in this world, so I disguised myself as a poor old man, waiting to see if anyone would stop to help me." He leaned forward, his eyes filled with emotion. "Many passed me by, Zenzi, but you stopped. You didn't know who I was, yet you chose to be kind. That, my dear, is a rare thing." Zenzi swallowed hard. "I only did what anyone should do." "Ah," Baba Tembo said, shaking his head. "But not everyone does. And that is why you are here." Zenzi's fingers tightened around the edge of her chair. "What do you mean?" Baba Tembo smiled. "I have been looking for someone with a good heart, someone I can trust. And I believe that person is you." Zenzi felt the room tilt slightly. Trust. What was he saying? "I have a proposal for you," Baba Tembo continued. "One that could change your life forever." Zenzi's heart pounded as she stared at him. She had only helped a man cross the street. How had it led to this? And more importantly, what was he about to ask of her? Zenzi's heart pounded as she stared at Baba Tembo, a billionaire, the same man she had seen struggling in the street just a day ago. It didn't seem possible. Baba Tembo, no, Tembo Kasonde, smiled at her, his eyes full of wisdom. "I know this is a lot to take in," he said gently. Zenzi could only nod. Her mind was spinning. "I disappeared from the public eye years ago," Baba Tembo continued. "People think I retired, but the truth is, I wanted to see the world differently. I grew tired of false smiles and empty words. Everyone wanted something from me, money, power, favors. But I wondered, were there still people in this world who would show kindness without expecting anything in return?" Zenzi listened, her fingers gripping the arms of the plush chair. "So, I created a test," he said. "I disguised myself as an old man, dressed in rags and walked among ordinary people. I watched how they treated me. Most ignored me. Some looked at me with disgust. But you stopped. You helped me cross the street. And when I refused your offer to buy me food, you still smiled and wished me well. He leaned forward. Tell me, Zenzi, why did you help me? Zenzi swallowed hard. I don't know, she admitted. I just felt like I had to. You needed help, and I was there. A slow smile spread across Baba Tembo's face. Exactly. You didn't do it because you thought I was someone important. You didn't do it because you wanted a reward. You did it because it was the right thing to do. Zenzi felt her cheeks grow warm. I don't think kindness should be a test, she said softly. People should help each other because it's the right thing to do, not because they're being watched. Baba Tembo chuckled. Wise words. He sat back and folded his hands. And that is why I have chosen you. Zenzi frowned. Chosen me for what? Baba Tembo's smile widened. I want to change someone's life, someone who deserves it, and I believe that person is you. Zenzi's eyes widened. What do you mean? I want to help you, he said. You have worked hard all your life, but kindness alone does not put food on the table. I will give you opportunities, a chance to learn, to grow, to build something for yourself. But there's one condition. Zenzi's heart thumped loudly. What condition? Baba Tembo's eyes twinkled. You must promise to always stay true to who you are. Never let greed, power, or wealth change your heart. Zenzi stared at him, overwhelmed. This was a dream, wasn't it? A man she had helped for just a moment was now offering to change her life. Was she ready for this test? Or was this only the beginning of something even bigger? Zenzi sat frozen in her chair, her heart racing. Did she hear that right? Baba Tembo, the billionaire she had helped without knowing, was offering her something unbelievable. He smiled warmly. Your kindness touched me deeply, Zenzi, he said. In a world where people only care about themselves, you showed selflessness. That is rare. Zenzi opened her mouth, but no words came out. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Baba Tembo continued. I have a company, one of the biggest in Zambia. We train and develop future leaders, but we don't just look for skills or education. We look for people with good hearts. People like you. Zenzi's hands trembled. Me? But I'm just a waitress. I don't have the experience or education for something like that. Baba Tembo chuckled. Experience can be gained. Education can be provided. But a pure heart? That is something no school can teach. Zenzi shook her head. This feels like a dream. Baba Tembo leaned forward. It is real. I want you to join my executive training program. You will learn business, leadership, and finance. You will work with some of the smartest people in the country. And if you prove yourself, you will have a place in my company's leadership team. Zenzi's eyes widened. This couldn't be happening. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say yes, Baba Tembo said with a smile. Zenzi looked down at her hands. She had spent her whole life struggling, working long hours just to survive. She had dreamed of something better, but she had never imagined an opportunity like this. It felt too big, too unreal. But why me? She asked. There are so many people who are smarter and more qualified. Baba Tembo's eyes twinkled. Because you helped me when you thought I had nothing. You didn't look down on me. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Zenzi took a deep breath. What if I fail? Baba Tembo's smile didn't fade. Failure is part of learning. I don't expect perfection. I only ask that you try your best. Zenzi's heart pounded. Could she really do this? A small voice inside her whispered, yes, you can. She lifted her head and met Baba Tembo's gaze. Then, with a deep breath, she said the words that would change her life forever. I accept. Baba Tembo clapped his hands together. Wonderful. Your new journey begins now. Zenzi still couldn't believe it. Just yesterday, she was rushing home after work, worrying about rent. Now, she was stepping into a world she had only dreamed of. Her life would never be the same again. At first, Zenzi thought her new life would be full of happiness, but she soon realized that success came with a price. The day after she accepted Baba Tembo's offer, people in her neighborhood started acting differently. Strangers who had never spoken to her before suddenly wanted to be her friend. Zenzi, I always knew you would be great, one woman said, smiling too widely. Ah, my dear, don't forget us when you become rich, another added. Zenzi felt uneasy. These were the same people who never cared about her struggles before. Why now? Then, the rumors began. She must have used some charm on that old man, whispered a market vendor as Zenzi passed by. I heard she tricked him into giving her money, another person said. Zenzi's stomach twisted. Why couldn't they just be happy for her? Even worse, some of her distant relatives, people who had never helped her before, suddenly reappeared. One afternoon, her aunt, whom she hadn't seen in years, showed up at her tiny apartment. Zenzi, my child, she said dramatically, hugging her. Now that you have been blessed, it's time to share with your family. Zenzi frowned. Auntie, I don't even have anything yet. I just started the training. Her aunt clicked her tongue. Don't be selfish. You think you're better than us now? Before Zenzi could respond, her phone buzzed with messages from cousins she barely knew. Hey cousin, I need help with my rent. Zenzi, since you're rich now, can you send me money? It was overwhelming. Zenzi didn't understand. When she was struggling, no one offered to help her. Now that she had a chance at a better life, they wanted to take from her. That evening, she sat alone in her small room, feeling exhausted. Was this what success felt like? She thought of Baba Tembo's words. Stay true to who you are. Taking a deep breath, she made a decision. She would not let greed and jealousy destroy her happiness. She would stay focused and work hard. The next day, when someone asked her for money, she smiled and said, I am still learning. If you want to improve your life, work hard like I am. Some people were angry. Others stopped talking to her. But Zenzi felt lighter. She realized something important. Not everyone would be happy for her success. And that was okay. She was not doing this for them. She was doing this for herself. Zenzi had faced jealousy, rumors, and people trying to take advantage of her, but she stayed strong. She focused on learning and working hard. One day, Baba Tembo called her to his office. He looked at her with his wise, kind eyes. You have done well, Zenzi, he said, but I have one final test for you. Zenzi sat up straight. What is it? Baba Tembo smiled. I want you to manage a charity project for underprivileged children. Many people pretend to be kind, but true kindness is shown through action. Let's see what you do with this opportunity. Zenzi's heart raced. This was bigger than anything she had ever done, but she nodded firmly. I will do my best. Zenzi got to work immediately. She visited poor neighborhoods where children had no shoes, no clean clothes, and little food. Their schools had broken desks and no books. Seeing their struggles made her eyes fill with tears. I must help them, she thought. She gathered a team and planned the project carefully. They raised money to buy food, clothes, and school supplies. She spoke with teachers and parents to understand what the children needed the most. Instead of just handing out money, Zenzi made sure the help would last. She set up a small reading center with donated books. She arranged free health checkups for the children. She even organized a fun day with games and music to bring them joy. She worked day and night, making sure everything was perfect. Finally, the day of the charity event arrived. Hundreds of children showed up, their eyes filled with excitement. They received warm meals, new clothes, and books. Some of them sat down immediately to read, their small fingers flipping through colorful pages. A little girl tugged on Zenzi's hand. Thank you, Auntie, she said with a shy smile. I've never had my own book before. Tears welled up in Zenzi's eyes. This was the best feeling in the world. Baba Tembo watched everything from a distance, a proud smile on his face. After the event, Baba Tembo called Zenzi to his office again. You have passed the final test, he said. You didn't just do this to impress me. You did it because you care. That is what makes a great leader. Zenzi blinked in surprise. So, what happens now? Baba Tembo grinned. Now, you are ready for something even bigger. Zenzi couldn't believe it. Just a few weeks ago, she was a simple waitress. Now, she was making a real difference in the world. She realized something important. Kindness was not just about one moment. It was a way of life. Zenzi stood in front of the towering glass building, her heart pounding. The golden letters on the entrance read, Tembo Group Headquarters. Just months ago, she was rushing through the streets, working long shifts as a waitress, struggling to make ends meet. Now, she was about to walk through these doors, not as a visitor, not as a hopeful job seeker, But as an official member of Baba Tembo's company, she took a deep breath and stepped inside. The day she joined Tembo Group felt surreal. Employees greeted her with respect. Her name was printed on an office door. A desk, a chair, and stacks of documents waited for her. She wasn't just an employee, she was a leader in training. At first, the responsibilities felt overwhelming. Meetings, reports, decisions, everything was new. But she reminded herself of the biggest lesson Baba Tembo had taught her. Leadership is not about power, it's about serving others. So she worked harder than ever, determined to prove that kindness and hard work could go hand in hand. As she settled into her role, Zenzi never forgot where she came from. She remembered the struggles, the hunger, and the long nights of doubt. She knew there were many young people just like her, smart, hard-working, but lacking opportunities. So, she made a decision. She convinced Baba Tembo to start a mentorship program for underprivileged youth. They would train young people in business, finance, and leadership, giving them the chance to break free from poverty. "You remind me of myself," Baba Tembo said with a proud smile. "You're not just building a career, Zenzi, you're building a legacy." The program launched, and the impact was immediate. Young men and women from struggling backgrounds joined, eager to learn. Some were former street vendors. Others had dropped out of school due to lack of funds. Zenzi made sure they got the training, education, and support they needed. One day, a young woman from the program approached her. "Miss Zenzi, I just got my first job because of this program," she said, tears in her eyes. "You changed my life." Zenzi smiled warmly. This was the real reward. Of course, success came with sacrifices, late nights, tough decisions, and moments of doubt. But every time she felt tired, she remembered that helping others was worth it. One evening, as she stood on the rooftop of the company building, watching the city lights below, she thought about her journey. She had been an ordinary girl with nothing but kindness in her heart. That small act of helping Baba Tembo had led her here. Now, the future was wide open, and she was just getting started. Zenzi stood on the grand stage, bright lights shining down on her. Cameras flashed, and reporters leaned forward, eager to hear her story. At her side stood Baba Tembo, the man who had changed everything, or rather, the man who had given her the chance to change her own life. As she gripped the microphone, she took a deep breath. This moment felt like a dream, but it was real. Months ago, she had been just another struggling young woman in Lusaka, working long hours and hoping for a better future. But everything changed the day she stopped to help an old man cross the street. "I never thought a simple act of kindness would lead me here," Zenzi said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I only knew that I couldn't walk away when someone needed help." The audience listened in silence. Many of them had heard parts of her story, but now they saw the person behind it. The girl who had risen from nothing because of one moment of kindness. Baba Tembo smiled proudly as Zenzi continued. "In life, we often think success comes from wealth, education, or connection. But I've learned that true success begins in the heart. It starts with how we treat others." Even when no one is watching, she looked at the sea of faces before her. Business leaders, young dreamers, reporters, and even strangers who had come just to hear her speak. Kindness is powerful. It can open doors you never imagined. Her words weren't just for them. They were a reminder to herself. She was living proof that a single moment of goodness could change everything. After the conference, people rushed to speak with her. Some wanted advice. Others wanted to thank her for inspiring them. One young woman wiped her tears and said, "Because of your story, I want to help others too." That was when Zenzi knew this was bigger than her. It wasn't just about her success or her journey. It was about the lesson. If more people chose kindness, if more people believed in the power of small good deeds, the world would change. That night, as Zenzi stood on the balcony of her office, looking at the city lights, she thought about her journey. She had been just another girl trying to survive, but now she was a leader, a mentor, and an inspiration. And it all started with one small act of kindness. She smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. Her story was proof that no act of goodness ever goes unnoticed. And now, she would spend her life passing that lesson on to others.